Welcome to the Check Your Art podcast, a place where we discuss the intersection of faith and creativity.
Join us each week as we explore new ways to use our gifts to glorify God and inspire others. Writers, musicians, visual artists, folks who just like to do an art, you're welcome here. Hey, how you doing?
We're here to do things. We're going to have a little chit-chat, a little talk, grab a snack, or you don't have to. That's fine.
Yeah, we don't really care.
Yeah, no, it's cool. Let's check your art.
Check your art. Yeah, today we're have a guest, my husband, Drew.
What up?
And so tell us a little bit about what you do, what you do full-time, what you do creatively. Just kind of give a gauge on what people are listening to.
Yeah, so I work full-time for a company called Kittl. We are a design tool that works in your browser. So that's what I do in my day job. I teach on YouTube how to use the tool. It's amazing. It's really great.
Yes. Check it out.
Like it a lot, actually.
It's wonderful. And, in addition to that, I like to draw a lot. I do a lot of tattoo designs on my Instagram, which is what I do on the side. And I also volunteer on the graphic team at church and do like sermon slides. And I also like to do book covers and just stuff like that.
Yeah, cool. And you're wearing your own t-shirt today.
I am. I'm wearing my own shirt, which if you're listening on, podcast, you cannot see, but I'm pointing and showing my shirt.
A shirt.
An illustration that I drew.
And it's very sure.
Very nice. It's also for sale, so.
What's your website?
Buy a lot of them. VincitDesignCo.com.
Can you spell that out?
VINCIT
Design.
SIN. Yeah. Just go click the link. It's super easy.
Go to his Instagram or someone's Instagram and click through to the website.
If you're listening, go to the show notes. They're right there. If you're on YouTube, just go to the description. Boom.
Boom. Yeah. And the shirt that you're wearing is also inspired by the Pilgrim's Progress book.
Yes.
Which is super cool.
Yes. It is a very reminiscent, not completely one for one, but very close, of a 1880 edition of Pilgrim's Progress, where Christian is still wearing the weight of his sin on his back. So I thought it was really nice and wanted to put it on a shirt.
Yeah.
Good conversation starter.
This is
Sweet. Megan, how are you?
yeah,
How's it going?
yeah, pretty good.
Yeah.
Just feel like I'm kind of at a good middle. I'm not really too anxious. I'm not too hype. I'm like feel a little stable.
Like 1 being no energy, 10 being the highest energy, like a 5.
Like a 5, solid middle.
Perfect.
That's how I feel at the moment.
It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How are you feeling?
I'm good. This water
Yes.
hitting. So I would say I'm also maybe a 4.
Oh, wow, even chiller.
Yeah, but it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So feeling sick, feeling solid.
Like it.
Okay, sweet. And today we're talking about constructive criticism, which is very exciting. And I know everyone loves criticism.
So much.
But diving into like making it constructive is going to be, I think, the most helpful.
I think so too. Yeah, because no one likes getting criticism, and no one likes to hear that they're not doing a good job. But when it's done in a way that is glorifying to God, and when it's done in a way that's helpful to the person, and like that they just get to understand how to be better, whether it's like their art or whether it's if they're struggling with a sin, I think that it is helpful to know how to communicate that with truth and grace.
And so I think having Drew here is very helpful because he's very good at giving constructive criticism.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I would say it's like very balanced. If you're like over the moon about something, you'll not like hold back on it. Like there's no like pride in that, which is really helpful. Yeah. But then when you actually give the criticism, you're not like trying to sugarcoat anything, which is also very helpful.
It is. Yeah.
And so
we're talking about this though in the direct context of like art, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
In this case, yeah.
I'm talking about drum life.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I just put like we were talking about like, there's a difference between constructive criticism on like, let's make this art better, and like, hey, you have this massive sin.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I think we're gonna slowly bring in parallels because we're covering was it Proverbs 27:17 about iron sharpens iron, man sharpens another man. And so there are like some direct parallels, and then there's some contrast when it comes to art and also your walk with Christ.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do that.
Yeah, sounds good. So when someone's asking you for constructive criticism, how do you frame it in a way that makes it so that you are communicating it well and also not hurting their feelings?
I mean, well, if it's already good, then like there's not a need to give such critical or constructive criticism. Even if at the front of it you're saying like, let's take this to the next level, you're not actually giving a criticism that something needs to be corrected. But if it's something, a design, a piece of art, which is a little subjective if we're talking about someone painting versus someone using design like as an art form, as a more structured thing, like design is a structured thing versus like you at home painting something should just, that should be you painting something. If you want to get someone's perspective on it and what do you think of this, then people can tell you what their thoughts are because it's a completed item. But if we're talking about things that can ebb and flow, so we need kind of a concrete example. So maybe it's a sermon graphic or a book cover. Maybe it's a book cover for a Christian book, which are quite bad most of the time. Now, I don't have any influence over that unless it's a project that I'm directly working on. But let's say that there is someone that's working on it and they show a book cover and criticism is needed, then it is the more important part is the constructive part. So you basically I try to look at it as all as teaching moments.
Yeah.
Like why did you do X, Y, and Z? So figuring out someone's rhythm, someone's path to how they got to said design or art form or whatever. And then you just use principles that, again, I'm not like amazing. It just depends. It's slightly subjective because someone could be like, well, I don't care. And you have to be like, cool, that's fine. It's your book cover, I guess. But yeah, the more important part is the constructive part, not such the heavy critical part. Like, so I would never say is like, this is not going to sell because it's like bad. What I would say is, do you think this book cover is captivating in a way that is going to lead people over to the shelf? And then we start looking at principles for that. And then if it's a sermon graphic, we just adapt it to that. Do you think people are going to tune in and look at the slide? Can they get the information on the slide? Will they get it in the email newsletter? Will they get it in the social media post? Are the colors right? So in that regard, there's a lot of technical things in actual design and color theory and all things that are just necessary to know. So using it all as a teachable moment and not saying like, so this isn't quite good. I wouldn't say that. I would say like, yeah, what I think might work better for this scenario in whatever block or format, whether it's a shirt or a book or an organic shape or a wall or something, then you just look at that and you say, how is this going to represent what you're trying to do, but also like bring people's attention to it, which is just really important for everything in the Christian space, and it should be a lot better than it is right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that a lot of times, because like you look at a Christian book cover or just anything and you're like, I don't want to buy this because this doesn't look appealing to me.
This is ugly.
Yeah.
Aesthetically.
Right.
Even though the words inside could be amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
It conveys like a lack of care about what's inside if the outside looks like trash.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it, your book could be the best book ever, but if no one's going to buy it because it's ugly on the outside, then it's pointless. But you said something that I really liked when, like, the person, making the design should be teachable, should be open to hearing the feedback. And, I think that's important in general. And then especially though, when it comes to design and something that is, something that is visual that you're showing people. And because if you just, as, a designer, if you're just like set in your way about what you're going to design and you don't want anyone else to tell you that you're wrong, then you might have a misspelled word or something. You might have a color that prints weird, and you might have missing information that would have been really helpful for people to know.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, so on our YouTube channel, like for my work for Kittl, one of our art director and I do these recaps for challenges. We do weekly challenges, just different prompts, like do a logo, do a retro shirt, do whatever. And the recaps are just he and I reviewing designs. And one thing I really like that he mentioned on our most recent one, which was a magazine cover, we did a video and showing here's how we would put together a magazine cover with some general guidelines and rules and grid and type, and having a focal subject like, Vogue magazine that's always a model or something. And we're going through all of these entries, and we got to one that we had already pre-select these before we film it. And at the front, it kind of looked and sounded like we were just laying into this person. Like, because we open it up and I give my couple thoughts, and then he's like, yeah, just at face value, it's way too much, but he's not said, he nor I said, this is bad.
Yeah.
We would say, this is not working for these reasons. But the more important part of what I'm trying to say is at the very end, when we did all of that small roast session of this person cover, he did a really great job of caveating and say, like, by the way, we picked this one to talk about because we like it and because it has potential and because we want you to succeed.
Yeah.
If we just brought up 20 examples of phenomenal magazine covers, then maybe the people watching or the person that made it, they're not getting any way to go to the next level. They're not getting any constructive criticism. It's really just feedback at that point.
Yeah.
But we say it almost every video is we're picking these because we like them, not because we want to pick ones that are roastable. But again, you can't pick ones. We can't just pick ones that are like, look how amazing this is, because then it just looks like we're hyping up people's work, and then nobody's really learning anything other than us just saying this is a good example. Use this example. But you could just do that from anywhere, Pinterest, or just go in a grocery store and look at it. So I think it's important to like always have that in mind. Like when someone is actually taking the time to give you any comments, it's probably because they like where it's going.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's going to be a very different vibe than in art school, where instructors need to be really intense, and they need to be, and it's not because they don't like you, it's because like you have to meet a certain standard to, if this is what you're going to do, and go out and be whatever. And it depends, drawing, graphic design, typesetting, whatever, book design, whatever, all this different stuff. But, also in those videos, we also say, you also don't have to do what we say. So
Yeah.
that you want.
And I think that's a really good point. I'm thinking like in the context still of, I'm always thinking in the context of music, obviously.
Yeah.
But like saying, you don't have to take the feedback. I think there's a good intersection of, I know what I'm trying to convey, and I am asking for feedback. However, there are certain things that you may not like creatively that I like creatively. I think personally of an example of like when we were doing music with your brother, and you guys were like, you have to resolve that chord. And I was like, kind of don't want to. Which like ultimately we did make the decision to do it because it was more pleasing in that setting, because it would have been distracting, which like I did take that feedback. But if I am doing that by myself, I'm doing that song by myself, I don't have to resolve it. If I wanted to record it, I don't have to resolve it. But I think there's like that dichotomy of I'm trying to convey the end of a song. So in that context, it made a lot of sense. And I think like collaborating is helpful for that, because I understand what I was trying to communicate, but then getting the feedback of what you're trying to communicate is not working in this setting is really helpful.
Yeah.
Because there are projects that I worked on where I'm like, I could do what I want because I'm writing the song, and it might sound odd or it might not be like industry standard, but you know, I want it to sound weird. And so it's going to sound weird. And I've gotten feedback of that word doesn't really work there. And it's like, well, it's what I want to say,
Yeah.
you know? And so I think there's like that dichotomy of having that feedback, but then kind of having your own gauge as to whether or not you can take it. But then there's also the discernment of you can't choose, well, you know, taking it and or not taking it every single time. Like you can't be people pleasing and you're creating.
That's so true.
Because then it just stops being what you want it to be. But you also can't be so stubborn that you're asking for feedback that you're never going to take.
Yeah.
That's so exhausting.
It is for both parties.
Exactly.
The potential flaw is not necessarily just asking for feedback for the sake of feedback, knowing that you're not going to do anything about it. It's reciprocal and looking for, and if just asking tons of people for feedback until you hear the one you want to hear.
Yeah.
That's the dangerous part. Otherwise, why ask for feedback? I mean, if you do something and you think it's just banger, then you don't ask for feedback because you think that it's great. And then you get into, does it work and does it not work? I mean, you have to release whatever this thing is and then collect data as to, no, it's not working because it sounds bad, or if it looks bad, or whatever. But yeah, I think it's important to just always ask for feedback, because it makes you better.
Yeah. It's refining. Like the whole point.
Yeah.
And I think like there is art you create for yourself. I'm never gonna show you my journal and be like, is this good?
Yeah.
But I think, you know, I'm not a digital creator, but when I've been like experimenting and wanting to like hone that skill, I've sent you stuff and you've been like, here's why this isn't working. And then I can be like, okay, I want to continue to work on this, or I'm actually gonna throw it in the trash. But then there's also been stuff that you've been like, oh, that's good.
That'd be good, yeah.
Which makes me feel very good about like being able to measure that progress.
Right.
So there's like that aspect of asking for feedback as well. That's like, oh, I'm growing in this thing that I'm trying to get better at. And I also almost want to switch gears.
Yeah.
And talk about how important it is to have people who you feel safe asking for feedback from.
Yes.
Because creating is such a personal thing a lot of the time. Sometimes not so much. Like when I was doing slides for church, it was kind of like, does this look good? And they'd be like, no, do this instead. I'd be like, fine.
Yeah.
But then it's like, if I'm writing a song and I'm like, please listen to this. Don't hurt me. Don't hurt my feelings. Yeah. That is a lot more personal. And I'm going to need people to kind of walk with me in that. And that is directly related to like our relationship spiritually.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, that's like that level of safety is because we are connected on like that spiritual level.
Yeah.
Not like the spiritual level, but
I know what you mean.
yeah.
Well, because if you talk to someone that you don't feel safe with about anything personal, whether it's your art or whether it's something that you're struggling with, you're opening yourself up for a possibility to be hurt even more by that person. And so, yeah, I agree. Like talking with people who are safe, but also on this, like in the same field, whether it's creatively, who have the eye for design or who know you personally and know you well to be able to give you the feedback that is going to be actually refining is really important. And it is a good segue kind of into just this verse that we were talking about earlier, which is in Proverbs 27, verse 17. It's very short. It just says, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another.
Yeah.
It's all about refining, all about, we need people. We need to be in community. We need to be around people that we feel safe with, that we respect and want to hear from. And I think, yeah, there's really, it just points us back to God too, because he lives in community with himself, right? Yeah. With the Spirit, with the Holy Spirit, and with Jesus. And it's just a beautiful picture of how we do that today here.
Thinking about that verse in Proverbs in the context of art, and with the direct parallel of how we walk in a spiritual way, like how we walk with God, what immediately comes to mind? Like, what are those parallels in both the art space and, I'm going to say, God space? Yeah.
That's good.
The metaverse knows. I mean, I think the most immediate, maybe a stretch, parallel or connection would be not doing something totally alone in a vacuum, no teaching, no inspiration, just deciding on your own whim or your own self that you're going to be great at something, whether it's music or art or painting or whatever. In the same way, it's really difficult to go throughout this life without reading scripture and praying and asking the Lord's guidance. Yeah. And sometimes that's going to come in the way of feedback or trials or massive joy or whatever. And you will also experience seasons of those in your artistic things, whether it's just you're stuck and you can't get past this creative block, or things that you think are really great aren't performing the way that they want to, and you're missing something. You've either missed feedback, you've missed suggestions from someone, or something as technical as you're not putting it in front of the right audience. Parallels to your spiritual life in this regard, especially if we're talking about art in the Christian space, kind of regardless, but listening to the Spirit leading you and scripture and whatever, like, it just going throughout this life on your own power is kind of the connection or the principle I'm trying to make. Is going through your artistic endeavor on your own power, like it's like somehow you invented it, will fail. And trying to succeed living as your own God will also fail. So the feedback for both of those is important, or in the influences and structure and all those things.
I like the idea that God does give you feedback. You also have to ask for it. I think and do it. And follow the feedback.
Feedback will be non-negotiable.
You can't choose not following that. That's perfect feedback.
Pretty much the best.
There's another parallel to that, I think, and that's like when I ask my coworkers who are severely and monumentally and exponentially better than me in all ways. I almost will not ever not do what they say. Like,
no,
not about. Like, I may once or twice be like, well, do you have another option for that? And here's why I'm thinking that won't option, because they're not they haven't created whatever this thing is in the context of what I'm intending to use it. So they're looking at it in terms of like, actually, does it work? Does this work? Does contrast, right? Is space work? Is negative space work? All these things. And it's like, I'm asking them and showing them because it's not right yet. It's not good. enough. It's not.
Yeah.
So in this same connection, I'm not sending it for validation. Now some I will send and they're like, I really wouldn't change anything except this size. And that does give you a little bit of like, okay, nice. That was good. Like I did a good enough job there. But you wouldn't ask in the first place if you didn't have these people or these influences with the correct corresponding power.
Yeah.
So we need to let people that are better than you have that authority,
Oh yeah.
little a, over that subject. So if it's, for me, if it's type or illustration or color or template design or whatever it is, I have very small a authority over those things where I'm going to the next level above me to ask for how I get to the next level. And then when someone asks me and I'm a little bit above where they are. So we have this fake hierarchy of things. And then we put that over into the spiritual category and we say, I need Jesus or God to show me this thing or how to do this thing or show me the passage I need to read or whatever, because they hold the authority over these things.
Big A authority.
Really big A. Again, non-negotiable feedback. I mean, it's not like where I can say, well, I don't want to use that, I don't want to use that font here because of these reasons. Because it's going to be shown as an X, Y, and Z. Oh, okay, well, how about you do this? Translate, put it over into God, providing you with the feedback. You can't be like, well, I don't want to, talk to that person because I don't like them. I mean, it's
this out of the Great Command.
Yeah, this falls apart at some extent, but it helps at least a little bit to think about the connection.
Yeah, well, and I think it leads really well into the term or the idea of discipleship and mentorship too.
Yes.
So we're all, as Christians, being mentored and discipled by God, but we're also learning from people who are older than us, who are more experienced in the faith, who know, have been through the thing that we're going through or something similar.
Yeah.
And then we are able to kind of pour into the people who are not as experienced or maybe younger than us or kids or whatever that are just having a hard time. And we want to show them as much as we know and point them to Jesus as best as we can, as humanly possible.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up mentorship and discipleship, because I feel like as we kind of get to the end of this, it's a good chance to be like, okay, now you. So if you're listening, I would encourage you to consider the ways that you receive feedback, whether it's in your spiritual life, whether it's in your walk, whether it's in your creative endeavors. Who do you ask? Who do you look to for feedback, and how are you receiving it? Maybe you're doing a great job. Maybe you are on the people-pleasing side of the spectrum. Maybe you're on the refusal side of the spectrum. But I think it would be a really good time to stop, take that checkpoint, and really consider it. And if you need a mentor, reach out to somebody. Pray about who you should ask for feedback in these areas. That can be a really good place to start. But I think that's it for today.
I think so too.
We did it. Ruth, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming to our studio in your house.
Or in my house.
In our house that we share.
Who put the phone real call? Okay, so first, where can they find you? And
me?
Yeah, plug yourself again. Plug Kittl. It's the superior app.
Yeah.
Tool.
Yeah,
Right.
tool. My bad.
Yeah, if you're into or doing design that requires either heavy or light use of typography, fonts, things like that, templates, print on demand, t-shirt design, printables, this is kind of your wheelhouse, is even using things like Adobe Illustrator, and maybe you're a little bit like, dang, this is kind of tough, or maybe you've been using other softwares online or ones that are just maybe too limited. I would definitely suggest Kittl 100%. I mean, I have to always say that it's amazing because I work for Kittl, so I promise you that it is amazing. But for my personal, which is spelled Kittl, again, just check the show notes. They're down there.
.com.
.com, yeah. For my personal, again, it's at Vincit Design Co, Vincit, on Instagram, on TikTok, on Pinterest, all the same. It's all the same username, and also on YouTube. So I have my own YouTube channel.
You do.
But I would say probably most active would be Instagram.
Yeah.
If you want to.
Blowing up the reels, yeah. And then where can they find us?
They can find us at Check Your Art,
RT.
ART, yes, on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. I think we're Check Your Art Podcast on YouTube. Yeah. And
Sounds good.
we also have an email.
Check Your Art Podcast at gmail.com.
That's it.
If you like emails and you don't like DMs.
Yes.
That's very exciting for you. Yeah, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. If you're listening, that's probably where you are
Currently.
But if you're not and you found us in the ether, we're there as well. That's all. Cool. Bye.
See ya.
That was fun. Let's do it again sometime.
If you like watching podcasts, we're on YouTube. If you're more of a listener, we're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and elsewhere in the ether.
Follow us on Instagram and TikTok where we share shorter clips and fun little bloopers.
Okay, bye.